Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at this time. If you will, please rise for the invocation. I will ask Councilman Barber if he will lead us in the invocation. If you will, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards.
Let's pray. Lord, I thank you so much for this opportunity we can gather together as a town. We can do the town's business. Lord, I pray that the decisions that we make are the right ones that benefit the people of the town of Smithfield. Lord, let us do so in a way that we take into consideration all people's responsibilities, all of them, all of their needs. Lord, that we do the right thing for as many people as possible. Again, we thank you, Lord, for what you do for us. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, gentlemen, you have the agenda in front of you. There are a few known changes that I have, which are as follows. Add to the presentations proclamation recognizing May 12th through the 18th, 2024 as National Police Week in the town of Smithfield. Remove from the consent agenda item 16, consideration and request for approval to award a bid in the amount of $56,326 to Biggs Outdoor Services for Public Works ground maintenance. And remove from the business item number 1, consideration and request for approval to adopt ordinance number 518-2023, creating a social district in downtown Smithfield. And then adding another proclamation, which is the 55th Annual Professional Municipal Clerk Week. Any other additions to the agenda or corrections?
Mayor, there's a note on business item 2 requesting for it to be tabled into June 4th, 24 council meeting. Which one is that?
That doesn't.
Do we need anything on it?
No, you'll need to actually address that.
Because that's part of, because that's
To leave it
already
on the
part of.
agenda and discuss it. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's on the agenda because you had a public hearing and that remains open. The public hearing was closed, but the agenda item remains open. No decision's been made. So you'll have to, again, table that formally to June
Understood.
4th.
When we get to it.
Understood.
Good question. Anything else? All right. If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So now we'll move on to our presentations.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. Just wanted to read briefly what the actual award is so the public can know. The Reliable Public Power Provider, or RP3, program is a designation given to the public utilities across the nation by the American Public Power Association. Currently, 254 of the nation's more than 2,000 public power utilities hold an RP3 designation. This designation recognizes the community-owned utilities that exhibit operational excellence and demonstrate leading practices in 4 distinct areas: reliability of power, workforce development, system improvement, and most importantly, safety. Through the RP3 program, utilities have a chance to learn, grow, and improve, as well as serve an example for others, communities striving for excellence. Designees complete a demanding application over the course of several months. Applications are then reviewed by an 18-member panel comprising national utility experts in safety, transmission, distribution, and planning. Applicants must meet a minimum score to even be granted a designation. The RP3 designation will last for 3 years, beginning in April 30th of 2024 through April 30th of 2027. With an earned score of 95 points out of a possible 100, the town of Smithfield was designated a platinum community. We just wish to congratulate the electric utility for this accomplishment.
Thank you, Ted, and to your entire department for all that you do. That's another testament of the great work that our town staff does, so outstanding job. So I have several proclamations to read tonight, so please bear with me if I don't fumble on all the whereases, Madam Clerk.
Sorry.
Just kidding. All right, so our first proclamation is Public Service Recognition Week, May the 5th through the 11th of 2024. If you'll bear with me as I read the proclamation. Whereas the residents of Smithfield, North Carolina are served every day by public employees at the federal, state, and local levels of government. And whereas each day the talented town of Smithfield public employees work to keep the town operating by ensuring proper management of municipal services and strategic implementation of public resources. And whereas in often difficult circumstances, our public employees are the unsung heroes that protect and enhance the quality of life for all our residents, businesses, and visitors. And whereas the public employees of the town of Smithfield are committed to exhibiting the highest standards of professional excellence, creativity, skill, and customer service. And whereas Public Service Recognition Week has been celebrated the first week of May since 1985 to honor the men and women who serve our nation as federal, state, county, and local government employees. Now, therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of the Smithfield Town Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May the 5th through May the 11th, 2024, to be Public Service Recognition Week, and further extend appreciation to all of our town employees, both full-time and part-time, as well as our volunteers for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the Smithfield community. So outstanding job to all of our public employees. And I will say, as mayor, I think we have the #1 staff of any public employees there are. So, they go above and beyond. They don't stand around and wait. They get the job done, and it's a lot of times without the thank yous from the public. So personally, as the mayor, our staff makes my job, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for the council, it makes our jobs so much easier when our phone's not ringing. And if our phone's not ringing, that means that somebody is doing something right. And I can tell you that our employees do things right. So again, thank you to all our employees for that. Does council want to say anything? I don't hate to put you on the spot, but you do. If you don't, it's okay. So, all right. All right. So thanks again for that. Excuse me. So now we'll move on to our next one, which is Public Works Recognition Week, May the 19th through the 25th of 2024. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the town of Smithfield. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are responsible for improving our streets, enhancing the appearance of the town, maintaining the town's fleet, and maintaining the solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens and civic leaders in the town of Smithfield to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in our community. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of the Smithfield Town Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May the 19th through the 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens pay tribute to our public works employees and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our health, safety, and advancing quality of life for all. So can give them a round of applause also. So again, if our phone's not ringing, they must be doing something right, and I can speak for this team. They're top notch. If you put something at the street, they're going to haul it away and keep the streets clean. That's just part of what they do, right? But I can tell you right now, if someone's trash doesn't get picked up, my phone is ringing. And that doesn't happen very often. So again, hats off to that team. Mike, again, goes to your leadership as well, but outstanding job. All right, two more. The next one is a proclamation for National Police Week, May the 12th through the 18th. Whereas National Police Week in America was created to honor and recognize the sacrifice and contributions made by police officers in communities both large and small. And whereas National Police Week, held every year in May, was created in 1962 through a proclamation issued by then President John F. Kennedy. And whereas our community will always appreciate and commend the risk police officers take every day to ensure our community's laws are properly enforced and that public safety is ensured. And whereas now, more than ever, the community also appreciates and encourages the community involvement facilitated by our police officers to both better serve and instill mutual trust, camaraderie, and positive relationships among our increasingly diverse population in the town of Smithfield. And whereas police engage with and serve the public in the most varied and wide-ranging manner, and their efforts do not go unnoticed. Now therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of the Town Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May the 12th through the 18th, 2024 as National Police Week in the town of Smithfield. And I encourage all residents to join the Town Council in the recognition of these services, sacrifices, and efforts the Smithfield Police Department makes to best serve our community. So again, Chief, to you and your staff, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Again, it's just a small token of our appreciation, but the fact that every single day yourself and your team, you go out not knowing what may happen. And as we reflect on what happened in the Charlotte area just a few weeks ago, right? It is so important that we recognize the individuals on our police team and the training, all the training that they have to do, and hopefully the training and what we invest in our officers will pay off in such circumstances. And God forbid, hopefully we're never in those circumstances. But again, to you and to your staff, thank you so much. If you will, please pass that along, sir. Okay, then the next one, surprise again, is to our town clerk for everything that she does, and she's going to not cry, I know, but thank you for everything that you do, and I think that I can speak for not only the council, but for Mike, and to our citizens, right? Always have the positive attitude and willing to go above and beyond to make things just right, not only for us, but for all of the employees. Anything, if you know Shannon, anything that she has her hand in is going to be done correctly, and it's going to be done top-notch and above, right? And just our annual Christmas party, right? It's amazing, all the efforts and the work that goes into that, and the donations that she helps to spearhead from our businesses around town. The town hall is full of donations that we give out to our employees at that time of year, and also this past year during an employee appreciation picnic as well. And just to see all of that pouring in is incredible, but it's also just a testament of you, Shannon, of being able to go out and get all of that, right? And make sure that everybody else is taken care of in this town. And I, as the mayor, certainly do appreciate that as well. So if you will, please bear with me as I read this proclamation. Hopefully it's right, because I think the town manager did it. So hopefully it's correct. Because Shannon, you didn't do this one. So if I say something incorrectly, I'm blaming it on Mike Scott. So the Town of Smithville Proclamation, the 55th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, May the 5th through the 11th, 2024. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, country, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the Town of Smithfield, do recognize the week of May the 5th through the 11th, 2024, as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Shannon Parrish, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Thank you so much, Shannon, for everything that you do. All right, that was enough whereases for this evening. We will move on now to our citizens' comments section. So anyone wishing to speak during citizens' comments, if you will please come forward. If you'll state your name and address for the record, and I will ask that you hold your comments to 3 minutes, please.
My name is James Coleman. I live at 104 Heritage Drive, and I'm here to express appreciation to Mr. Johnson and the Parks and Recreation Department. They replaced the driving net and mats behind the community center over behind the Parks and Rec, the Aquatic Center, and I've been using those for a little while, so I'm probably one that contributed to their deterioration over time. But last week at the Reedy Creek Golf Course, the Johnston County Senior Games Golf Tournament was held. And I'm proud to say that I'm one of the ones that qualified to represent Johnston County at the state games, which will be held in Winston-Salem in October. I know this doesn't rank up there with power generation and police and fire protection and the city clerk, but it is one of the things that makes living in Smithfield really enjoyable. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you and congratulations.
My name is Phyllis Palmer. I reside at 105 Yorkberry Drive in Clayton. I am a former resident of Oak Street and Pine Acres, and I'd like to say greetings to Mr. Mayor and the other council members. My request is to restore the historical accuracy of Oak Street in the Pine Acres neighborhood. Oak Street extended from the railroad track to Market Street after the added entrance. Many years later, the first few blocks were renamed to Dogwood Street from Oak Street. My request is to return the approximate 2 blocks that were originally named Oak Street and later renamed Dogwood Street to the original Oak Street name. Except for the name change, the conditions are basically the same today as they were at the time of the name change. No traffic pattern changes and no houses facing Oak Street or Dogwood Street. For those of us whose histories have sometimes been interrupted, rewritten, and/or erased, our history is important. Please give thoughtful consideration to this request. I have additional background information that I can leave as I cannot cover it in 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am, that's fine. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Palmer, do you know how many residents that would affect with their address being changed?
None.
None.
That's the reason it was changed originally, from what I understand.
Because the reason I asked is if it was, they'd change their mailing, but I just was curious about that. Thank you.
None.
Seems like a reasonable request.
Anyone else? If you will, please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jamie Blackwood, 44 Brookwood Drive. I'm a new resident, relatively new to Smithfield, transplant here from Maryland. I don't really have concerns about growth that's going to happen. Growth is good for the community, does a lot of good things. However, this project that's coming up with all the housing development and the light industrial and things like that, my concern is, as a retired fire chief, is that have we talked about increasing the amount of firefighters, developing a station that's already needed anyway, drastically needed in the Brightleaf area by Walmart in that area, needs to happen. But are we talking about law enforcement protection and things like that? What happens in growth, and I've historically dealt with this before, is the councils tend to forget about that. And we need to look at that, and then how is it going to be paid for? You know, where I come from, we've talked to those businesses that are moving in, and, you know, combined growth, if they're large enough, heck, hit them up to buy a fire engine, right? You know, you're talking $1 million for a pumper now. Ladder trucks are $2 million. Law enforcement, are we going to increase the amount there? You know, that many housing units, I don't care what we say, crime is going to increase, right? So there's already a lot of people that complain about the ability of law enforcement to get out that direction anyway. So, you know, I would like you all to sit down and take a good look at that, because that's part of it. I don't have anything against the growth. I've talked to many people in our neighborhood, and they knew I was coming tonight. So I talked with a voice then. I've talked to law enforcement people that live in my neighborhood that are part of the community here. I've talked to fire service professionals that are here. and that's all I'm asking, that you take a good look at those things. And one other thing is that if this growth happens off Booker Dairy, we have the dirt path, the sidewalk stops. You have two housing neighborhoods now there. You have Eden Woods, which has been there a long time, and that subdivision across the street, which I can't name. But there's no sidewalks there. They stop. And kids wear a path in the mud and stuff, and people. And if they're going to Brightleaf and walking over a block to shop, they should be able to walk on a sidewalk. So just a recommendation. And if anybody would ever like to, talk and get more in depth on any of this, I'm more than available to talk and to help where I can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak? If you will, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Luke Gray, 416 Oak Street. I'm a new resident of 4 years. I just want to address a traffic safety concern. A lot of the roads, the striping, the yellow dots is pretty much worn away. From being a professional driver, I see that's critical. The volume in town now is just going to be getting crazy. And unfortunately, the outlet road is as dark as a back alley on a good night, and there's no lines there. It's real easy for even a local resident just to drive off into the ditch because they can't see where they're going. But so safety is a big concern. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. So just before we move on, just to pass a little something on, Outlet Center Drive was restriped yesterday. So just so you know. So thank you for your comments, and staff was already on it. So thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
How you guys doing? Richard Buckner, 106 Cobblestone Court. Thank you again for another opportunity to talk to you guys. A couple of them are questions, and some of it's just general commenting. So a quick question. You mentioned the public hearing part of the Buffalo Road section is closed. I'm new to this. What does that mean? Because they get to come back with another plan. Do we get to speak whenever they come back on June 7th?
So we'll take that up when they do come.
'Cause my perception
when
is
they
they
come
can
in.
bring a plan, but we won't be able to discuss it on our side. Is that correct?
The public hearing portion is closed. That's not to say that we could not potentially reopen that public hearing.
I
So
am-
there is that possibility that we could open it.
I am asking you guys to please do so on behalf of my entire neighborhood. So the next thing I want to talk about is just like the gentleman just spoke, that is much more articulate than I am. I wish I was. I am not against the growth. I know that is what it appears every time I get up here and talk, but I'm just more about pre-planned strategic growth, not compounding certain matters to make them better later on down the road. Again, I feel very much like we put the cart before the horse in a lot of circumstances. So one of the hearings that I came to, I was discussing how this was going to impact the schools. And I know that's the school board issue, but again, a lot of the decisions that you guys make cascade naturally to the school board. So I do want to discuss that again because I was at a school council meeting again today. And they struggle with classroom size. So right now, fifth graders, they can have up to 25 kids in one classroom. Obviously, that's not going to be great for learning. I don't want to compound the matter to make it worse before it gets better with my kids while they're in school. I don't want them to have to take one for the team because it's going to get better later whenever it's not going to impact them beneficially. Right now, it's actually going to hurt them to compound the matter, and it's going to affect their learning. Another thing that's an issue with the schools right now is buses. Elementary schools can have more kids on the bus just due to the size of the children. Does anybody know how many kids on average, how many elementary kids on average are in a bus right now? I was pretty taken back, 66 per bus. So one of the issues that they face right now is that the buses are overcrowded and they need more routes. Obviously, they need more drivers. But 66 elementary kids, as we've seen on the news recently, is dangerous for these kids to be on some of these buses when they're that full. That took me back. That's a lot of kids on a bus. I would not want to drive that bus personally. Other than that, I look forward to hopefully being able to speak on June 7th when I hear more about what the developers bring to the table. I feel like there's been a lot of back and forth and delays, which make it frustrating whenever I'm told that we don't get a chance to speak, because here we are continuing to push it off. So that's why I'd like that opportunity for my neighborhood. And again, just in regards to the growth, I know one of the biggest concerns, not just for me, but for your community, is traffic. I got videos where traffic is backed up from the stoplight at the college all the way down to 2nd Street, where people are stopped at green lights. We don't even have that huge development in front of Amazon yet. And a lot of these houses that are going in, there's not too many jobs in Smithfield that support the mortgages. So all these people are going to be going down, Highway 70 into Clayton, which is already a nightmare, and onto the highways, which are already a nightmare. So again, compounding the matter in order for it to get better later. So I'm hoping on the next town hall meeting, we can discuss what the plans are to address some of these issues that are current, that are only going to get worse with a lot of this development that you guys are approving, because there's a lot of development approving, but we're not seeing much happening in regards to a lot of the problems that are already happening now based on, I've been here for about 5 years and the population's grown about 40%, give or take, rough math. You guys might be able to tell me more specifically, but we're moving towards doubling the population within 10 years. And that is not good for our infrastructure. So hopefully we can discuss that as we continue to talk about how we're developing, because it is impacting the traffic, the schools, and like the gentleman just mentioned, emergency services, which will continue to compound the matters. So
Okay. Thank you,
look forward
sir.
to talking to you guys next month. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward this time. Okay, not seeing anyone. We'll move on now to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended? Or did we amend it?
I make a
Sorry.
motion,
I don't think we amended the consent agenda. Sorry.
I move that we approve the consent agenda. There was one item we removed, number 16, so as amended.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. We will now move on to our business items. All right. So our first first business item is CZ-23-01 Buffalo Road rezoning request. Adams and Hodge Engineering, PC, is requesting a conditional rezoning of 138.63 acres of land from R8 and R20A to R8CZ with a master plan for a planned development consisting of 222 single-family lots. The applicant is also requesting this to be tabled until the June 4th, 2024 Town Council meeting. Mr. Manager, I think you had something on that?
I do. I do want to update the council a little bit on this. It's been going on for a while. So planning director and I met with the developer earlier this week, and we had a conversation with them to see when this was going to be ready to come back and what progress they've made. While I don't want to get into the progress, it was positive based on what some of the reservations were with the council during the previous meeting. They also said it is unlikely that they would be ready in June. It would be more likely, assured us pretty much, that they would be ready at the July 9th meeting to come before you with their changes. So I wanted to update the council on that and let you know that it is being discussed. We are still working with them, and there is work being done.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. All right, this time, do we want
Yeah,
to
we're
just do it to
still
the
gonna have-
June 4th meeting?
It's up to you, Mr.
We'll do
Mayor.
it to the June 4th. That way we'll do it, and if we have to postpone it again. So do I have a motion to table this item to the June 4th, 2024 meeting?
Mayor, I don't have a problem with us tabling. I'm just concerned that, much like presented tonight with the public hearing, I mean, it's almost the point that we need to, I don't know what the delay is, but I think it's appropriate that we do have another public hearing. If it's tabled, if we remove it, whatever that legal language looks like, but I think it's important that we have a public hearing.
I think it's being tabled, to answer your question, because they're trying to work on some items that were discussed during the public hearing to try to make the subdivision be more what we had envisioned and take into consideration some of the the things that were brought up during that public hearing and the many citizens in that neighborhood and surrounding areas that actually spoke on it during that time. So I think that's the reason why. I just don't think they're quite ready yet because they're still tweaking things and trying to make things work. So I think that's the reason it's being delayed. To your question of why it's being delayed, to my knowledge, that's the only reason why it's being delayed is because they're working on that. So.
He made a motion to do it. He did.
Did you end up making a motion?
Yes, I will make that motion, but again, Mayor, and thank you for your feedback. It's important that we're transparent and people, there's been people coming to these meetings ever since thinking they're going to hear this case. So if we have to re-advertise or whatever, maybe we don't have to, but as long as it's clear and transparency and we have a public hearing, I think that's important. So yes, I'll make that motion to move it.
Okay. A motion to table this to the June 4th, 2024 meeting.
I second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay, now moving on to our next business item is S-24-01 Jubilee Creek Subdivision. CMH Homes Incorporated is requesting approval of the preliminary plat of 4.83 acre parcel, Johnston County Tax ID 15I09034M, located southwest of the Galilee Road and Highway 210 intersection, adjacent to and north of the West Smithfield Elementary School, into a 7-lot, single-family residential subdivision. So, Council, if you remember, we already had the public hearing on this as well. There was a motion made on this. But, Mr. Manager, I guess I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. To remind the council, this came before you on April 2nd. At that meeting, there was a motion made by Councilman Barber, seconded by Councilman Dunn, based on the finding of fact that is inconsistent with the adopted comprehensive growth plan, that you should deny the request. You voted on that and you denied that request. The meeting of April 2nd was recessed until April 11th. During the April 11th meeting, there was a motion made to reconsider that vote. That motion passed by a quorum of the council, and that put the motion back on the floor that Councilman Barber made. Since that time, the developer contacted me and asked that we wait to move forward with that motion until they were here. And I believe the council also asked that they be here to answer any questions that might come up. Since they are here, I know Mr. Morris is here, along with the developer. Mr. Morris is their attorney. He is asked to add some comments to this. So it would be staff's recommendation, and then we would ask Councilman Barber to rescind this motion that is on the floor. The council would have to agree with that, and then reopen the public hearing to allow additional comments to be made by the developer and their representative.
Mayor, just for clarification, the 11th meeting that was spoke of, the council was advised that there were some conditions that we failed to consider.
Right.
That's why it was reopened, or he wasn't here.
Reconsidered.
To reconsider, okay. Just want to make sure that's clear, and being transparent with the public, because that's very important. Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, since there's some additional information to be gathered, I would move that we remove or rescind the motion so that the additional items can be presented.
Okay. Have a motion to have a second. Second. Okay. Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. All right. So at this time, I will need to kind of sort of like what Councilman Scott was just saying. I think the recommendation is to reopen the public hearing. So if that was quasi-judicial, right? Yes. Okay. So at this time, I do plan to ask for a motion to reopen the public hearing. If there's anyone wishing to speak on this matter for or against, please stand now and be sworn in by the clerk.
Do it real simple, where you're at. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. All right, at this time, again, I already read what it is. I don't think I'll need to go back through that unless you guys need to. This time, do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, now, Mr. Manager, you want to take it, or
Sure.
Stephen?
Mayor, before he does, I have one thing I'd like to ask the clerk, if she could look back to the record, and because with this public hearing coming up tonight without it being known, can she reflect on anybody that was present that spoke for or against it at that time? That's important. She can tell us in a little while. I just wanted her to have time to look that up. Mike can carry on.
Yeah. My recollection was no one spoke against the public,
Okay.
against the subdivision at that.
Because I was absent from that session with
Yeah.
my ill
No
mother.
one spoke against it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just think it's important we ask.
Yeah. Stephen, you want to briefly go through where we're at with Jubilee Creek?
Yes.
Just what it is.
I'll just go through some quick points. This is the proposed site is a 7-lot, single-family home subdivision. It became a major subdivision because it's more than 3 lots. As you can see, 2 lots in the southwest corner of this map. Those 2 lots were previously developed as a minor subdivision. So to continue on developing this land, he had to do a major, which is the process that led us to tonight. Here is the subdivision. Pretty basic subdivision. It's going to be septic lots, public water. All meeting R20A standards. And this is the draft finding of fact, and the reason why it was first denied, because of finding of fact number 1. And the recommended condition was that a 5-foot concrete sidewalk be provided along NCDOT frontages. And I did have one other item to show the council. And that is the I'm not seeing the image here. I apologize. There's supposed to be an image here of the existing couple homes that were built on those 2 lots. I did have an image for you tonight. I don't see it here.
Stephen, could you go back to the findings of fact, please?
Yeah.
I want to address this. Another reason that I asked the council to reconsider this was because I want to make sure that the council addresses all 4 of these finding of facts. I think that's what one of the things Councilman Scott alluded to, is we addressed the first one, we found it to be inconsistent, and we voted this down. All 4 findings really should be addressed and should be voted on separately or all 4 together. So I would ask the council to do that in this setting.
Stephen, anything
No.
else you have it?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Done.
Any questions at this time for staff?
Did he give you pictures of the property that's already developed?
I can do a Google search and pull them up, but that's what I was going to provide for you tonight.
All right, anyone duly sworn wishing to speak on this matter, come forward now. you will, please state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Yes, of course, and thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. My name is Samuel Morris with Longleaf Law Partners. I'm an attorney for the applicant and property owner. My address is 4509 Creedmoor Road, Suite 302 in Raleigh, and appearing here this evening on behalf of the applicant and property owner. And just kind of as a matter of course, would like to move to make sure that the UDO, the town plan, the staff report, and our application are all included in the record for this case. So with that, I'd like to keep my comments short. We're not going to rehash this entire public hearing. You heard testimony from Mr. McIntyre, who's the civil engineer for this case, who walked through the subdivision plan at the last hearing, as well as the staff report and testimony from the planning director, all of which we think is very helpful and sufficiently summarizes this case. So I think we just need to kind of take a step back, remind ourselves where we are, and then we'll kind of make our argument for consistency with the comprehensive plan. So as y'all are aware, this case comes before you as a quasi-judicial subdivision approval with 4 relevant standards set forth in the UDO that must be met for approval. And if the competent material substantial evidence in the record shows that those 4 standards are met, the subdivision must be approved. If they're not met, it should not be approved. The evidence presented during the last public hearing, as well as the staff report, we believe make absolutely clear that the proposed subdivision meets standards 2, 3, and 4. And we don't believe there was much debate at all about that during the last hearing. And the specific findings of the staff can be found on page 253 of your backup materials, concluding specifically that standards 2, 3, and 4 are met. And therefore, this case, whether or not it should be approved, really turns on whether the evidence in the record establishes that the proposed subdivision meets condition number 1, and that is whether it's generally consistent with the town's adopted policies. So with that, we would like to make our argument briefly here, why we believe that this subdivision plan is consistent with the town's adopted policies. So first, we'd like to make clear that the standard is consistency with the town's adopted policies. It is not 100% consistency with the future land use map. The future land use map is one of many adopted policies of the town of Smithfield. It's not the only policy document that guides land use and future development in the town. And specifically, the future land use map is really geared towards guiding decisions on rezonings. If you're going to be rezoning a property within the extraterritorial jurisdiction or within the town of Smithfield, the key policy document you look at when you're deliberating a rezoning is that future land use map. However, the case is not necessarily true when it comes to by right subdivisions and kind of by right approvals that are based on existing zoning. The future land use map is supposed to be about future zoning. This subdivision approval is based on existing zoning. And so we think that despite the fact that there may be some slight inconsistencies with this request and the future land use map, that should be taken as kind of a sliver of the larger picture of all of the town's adopted policies and plans. And that some slight inconsistencies with the future land use map here, or in any kind of policy analysis, you might have some policies that weigh in one direction and other policies that weigh in another direction. The standard is consistency with the town's adopted plans, kind of as a holistic general analysis. So a singular inconsistency should not sink a case. It should be viewed as a holistic perspective. And so, again, the future land use map really is a rezoning document in that the current zoning is really what should be looked at more closely when you're analyzing whether or not a by right kind of development that's requesting approval based on its current zoning. It's not seeking to change its zoning jurisdiction at all. We think that the current zoning designation is really the kind of guiding factor for overall consistency. And in fact, there's a North Carolina Court of Appeals case from 2012, and that was where it was a special use permit for a cell tower. But the court basically it is a very common quasi-judicial standard. And what the North Carolina Court of Appeals said is that, and I quote, "The inclusion of a use in a zoning district, even where a special use permit is required, establishes a prima facie case that that use conforms with the comprehensive plan." So by allowing the use in the existing zoning, it creates a prima facie sort of presumption that it is consistent with the town's adopted plans. And unless there's compelling evidence to the contrary, that presumption should stand. As you're aware, the current zoning is R20A, which allows single-family residential by right, and therefore we believe that the ruling of that 2012 case, which is American Towers, Inc. versus Town of Morrisville, that's 222 NC App 638. We believe that holding, although it was in the context of a special use permit that says when the town allows a use by right in a zoning district, it creates a prima facie case that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. We believe that ruling holds true in this case as well. But even if it didn't, we do think that despite the fact that there may be some inconsistency with that kind of rezoning-focused future land use map that does designate this area as the sort of office mixed-use designation, we think when you weigh that against all of the other policies in the town's adopted plans, that it doesn't necessarily tip the scales into it being inconsistent overall. We think overall the request is consistent with the town's adopted plan, specifically the introduction of the comprehensive plan, or the town plan as it's dubbed. The balanced growth policy says that the town should coordinate land use and transportation decisions in a way that respects the environmental features in existing neighborhoods. We think that this is a rural area with almost entirely single-family residential and residential uses. We think that we're consistent with that. Moving into the growth management section of the town plan, policy 4A says that you should discourage encroachment of incompatible commercial uses into residential neighborhoods. We believe that development of single-family residential at this location is consistent with that policy. Policy 5A says that you should encourage density in design of new subdivisions to be appropriate based on the existing context. We believe that this single-family residential subdivision is highly consistent with the existing context in the area, and we're therefore consistent with that policy. Policy 5B says that the town should allow attached and multifamily residential only where appropriate by encouraging building size, scale, and architectural character that is compatible with existing development. Again, this is a rural single-family area, and the single-family development we've proposed is highly consistent with the existing development pattern in the area. Therefore, we think we're consistent with policy 5B. Policy 6A relates to protecting the town's rural edge. We're in a highly kind of rural single-family area. We think we're consistent with that policy. Policy 4C says that that the town should coordinate with affordable home builders. Clayton Homes is one of the top kind of naturally occurring affordable housing providers, both in North Carolina and across the Southeast. And we think we're consistent with those affordable housing policies as well. And then finally, there's countless policies found throughout the town plan relating to conservation of open space and preservation of kind of green spaces, green areas. And we think this kind of low-density, single-family residential that's located on the edge of town is clearly consistent with that policy. And therefore, we do believe that when you kind of weigh the scales, we are consistent overall. And then finally, to kind of look back at the future land use map, which, as we have discussed, suggests office or kind of higher density residential at this location, we believe those policies are really not reflective of the practical realities that exist on the ground today, particularly regarding utility capacity and sewer, to be specific. The town plan was adopted several years ago before they could have predicted exactly what the utility and capacity situation would be. We happen to be located in an area where there is no sewer capacity. It's just not there. And due to its location, it's extremely unlikely that sewer capacity will be provided at this location anytime in the near future. So we think that should be taken into consideration as well when you put weight on that future land use map, the fact that it just doesn't jive with the realities on the ground today. And then finally, common principles of planning and smart growth would say that high-density residential, commercial, or office uses should not be located in areas where there is no sewer capacity. Rather, such areas that are not currently served and that are on the edge or in the rural areas of towns are really better suited for low-density residential until the town has reached a pace of growth where it's actually kind of gotten out there and proper services can be provided to that location in order to allow that higher density residential, office, commercial. And then finally, staff specifically does conclude that because, and this is again found On page 253 of this, of your backup materials within the staff report, it specifically concludes that because the town plan contemplated sewer capacity and none is available, that single-family houses are appropriate at this location. And that is concluded within the staff report. We agree with that, and for all those reasons, we do believe we are overall consistent with the adopted plans, and that we do meet standard number 1, and we would respectfully request for approval of this case. And we've got our engineer here as well, and happy to take any questions that you all have. Thank you.
Any questions for the
Yeah, I had a
applicant?
question. So one of the things, you said that there.
Hold on, Mr. Morris.
Yeah,
you please
for yours.
comment?
You said that there was examples of current zoning conditions. So can you give me some examples in our town where this same situation has changed, as an example? You said there was examples of this current zoning in our town. So where are the examples of what we're doing now, where we had inconsistency in our comprehensive growth plan, and we used something else instead in inconsistency? Because that's what you said, there was examples. So I'm just asking you to show me the examples.
Yeah, I'm sorry if my words may have been misconstrued. I'm not claiming to cite any specific examples in the
Okay.
town of Smithfield. All I was just saying is that this standard, consistency with the town's adopted plans, is a quasi-judicial standard that is ubiquitous across the state of North Carolina, and that when the courts have reviewed that standard, it's generally it's a balancing of all the policies in all of the policy documents. So a single inconsistency with a single policy is really only one data point. It's not enough to completely fail that standard. You have to balance all the policies across all the adopted plans, and that if it tips the scales, that overall it is inconsistent. It's not if you identify a single policy, it fails the standard. That was the point I was trying to make. I can't cite an example in Smithfield where that was the case and that it was approved, but I can say overall that is the standard across the state of North Carolina.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Mayor, I just want to make one point. Mr. Morris, I appreciate you coming in here and addressing this board. You used the term rural community. I just want you to understand, to us, that area is not rural. I mean, I don't know what your definition of rural is, but that's part of our neighborhood. I mean, it's part of our community. So we probably do have other areas that are rural, but, I mean, it goes back to choice of words. I just want to make sure we pointed that out.
His office is on Creedmoor Road in Raleigh, I guess.
I didn't want to say that, Mayor.
And it does buffer right up against the town of Smithfield. It actually buffers up against the town of Smithfield, because we do have property out there that is annexed into the town of Smithfield. So, one day some other housing developments out there may become another part of our town. So it's not just out there in the middle of the wilderness. So what happens there can impact the town as a whole. My concern too is that the comprehensive growth plan is, if that's an important document, that's an important document. If it's not an important document, then we don't need to be using it for anything. If we can't use the comprehensive growth plan to approve or disapprove anything, then there's no reason for having it for anything. If it doesn't hold, it's either important or it's not, right? Whether you got other things that may do something different, I have a concern about that. And whether or not this particular case or not is something not necessarily relevant to what I'm discussing. I'm just saying the statements related to comprehensive growth plan, I think it's either it's important or not. You understand what I mean? I mean, we spend time and effort developing it for a purpose, for long-term strategic planning. I think the board takes it very seriously when we approve the comprehensive growth plan. We spend a lot of time and effort on it. So it's not just something that we just think, that we spend a lot of time and effort developing for a purpose. So it's not an accident or anything like that, just a flavor. It's something very important. So I just want to make sure I got that out there too. That's really my comments. I understand the issues. I understand the concerns. I understand your position. I understand what you were saying based upon the interpretation of the law. I understand all those things. I thought you did a very good job at presenting that. Okay. The only thing I take concern is about, I said about the examples, I didn't know of any examples. And the second thing was that I don't think we need to belittle, though, the comprehensive plan. I think comprehensive growth plan is important, and we do a lot of our decisions based upon comprehensive growth plan. And so, it is important. And we can't disallow it. We may decide to vote in favor of the proposal, but that is not in any way to belittle our comprehensive growth plan and what it does for us. Okay, there can always be exceptions to the rule, but that doesn't change the rule.
Any other comments? Councilman Stevens?
On the sidewalk, Councilman Scott we're asking about that. And if memory, I just make sure I'm correct, we're not doing one on 210, but we are doing one, or you're proposing one on Galilee Road to the school.
Hold up, time out. So, I'm sorry if it's not duly,
he's not
still in a public
sorry.
hearing, so I
Yep,
believe
sorry.
you were the only one that was sworn in?
I
So,
can
I mean, if
confirm.
he wants to talk, that's fine, we can swear him in, but I need to get him sworn in, if that's the case.
Either one.
It's just an individual, if you want to have some back and, some
Yes, so
engineer, so yeah, let's.
Madam Clerk, do you mind, I don't,
I think that's important.
I don't believe you were sworn in originally, is that correct? Okay, if you don't mind, please get sworn.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thanks,
Good
sir.
evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, if you will, please state your name and address again for the
Matt
record, please.
McIntyre, 2621 Stratford Hall Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's my understanding it was the one street would be sidewalk, the other would
Right,
not.
because there was a ditch on 210 that you'd be
Well-
having you'd have ditch, road, ditch, sidewalk.
Well, my concern was the fact that the sidewalk would be pushed way over because
It cut into the
you've
yards.
got a 6-foot shoulder, then you got the ditch,
Mhm.
then you got a sidewalk. So the sidewalk would literally be in their yards.
Right. And a
So, but
sidewalk.
ultimately, I'm not the decision maker. I was just offered my.
Yeah. And what did we, did we, I guess we didn't approve it, so it doesn't, but I mean, it's,
So, Stephen, do you?
What are we
I mean,
gonna do about it?
I believe the planning staff was recommending a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk construction along the NCDOT road frontages, right?
That's correct. Consistent with the UDO.
on both sides.
Yeah, they're both DOT streets. It's not uncommon for sidewalks, if the ditches and such are so wide and they eat up most of the right-of-way, it's not uncommon for sidewalks to end up on private property in an easement. Amazon did it that way, other examples.
And I thought I remember you saying that's not ideal, but
Correct.
if it had to happen,
Correct.
you could make it work.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It can be done by an easement if that's what everybody chooses.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you, sir. Does that answer?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
Your question.
I think we need to bring up the sidewalk discussion soon.
Any other questions?
But, okay, the key is right now, what we're doing right now is we're rezoning the
No.
property.
No.
This is a
No.
subdivision.
Plat approval.
Okay, all
Right,
right.
and so you will still have to go through the 4 findings of fact.
Yep.
That we discussed, and whereas, and I'm going to summarize here, we were looking at the comprehensive plan originally for number 1. That's kind of where we got.
Right.
Said it was inconsistent. The attorney, in his statements earlier, stated that it's not, we shouldn't just be looking at that. We can look at the totality of all of the policies and everything that come into play, and he stated examples of that to try to make the case of why it should be consistent, I guess. And he cited the Court of Appeals case, though it was a special use permit. He was saying that it may apply. I'm not going to. Our attorney's down here smiling, so I'm not sure he agrees with that. But that was the argument that was made. So, I guess I summarized that pretty correctly. Any other questions, comments? That was the only condition, right?
That was the only
was
condition staff
sidewalk.
recommended.
Okay. And it sounds to me like that's something that can be can
Are
be,
the other
can be
7 lots supposed to
accomplished.
look like these 2 properties here? Because we were told that they were supposed to look like the subdivision across the street is what we were told. I'm just trying to figure out if they're gonna look like this or a whole lot of what was across the street.
I think they'll be similar in nature to what you're seeing there. Yeah, it's the same developer. So yeah, apologies, wasn't at that initial hearing, not exactly sure what comment you're referring to.
Yeah, there was a reference made to consistent with
The house across the street.
houses across the street, which are
Okay.
totally different from.
Yeah, understood. Absolutely. It'll be a single-family housing development pattern. And just want to clarify for the record, we're happy to include a condition that the sidewalk will go along both public streets as a condition of approval.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, I mean, it goes back to the issue is, the only reason they're here, he could build one of those, he could build 2 of those and not ask for any approval. But the fact that this is a subdivision, to his point, it's already zoned, the zoning's been done years ago. They're just because it triggers a subdivision clause. Am I-
Correct. I mean,
Correct.
it's considered a major subdivision.
Yeah.
Right. It would be considered a major. Anything above 2, 3, 2, I mean,
It's 3 or more.
3 or more. It kicks it into that category, correct.
Mayor, one of the other things, and I can ask staff when a final plat will come before, but the shared driveways, was that any discussion about that in the evidence presentation?
That's a DOT requirement.
Okay,
DOT has already reviewed the plat and has made that recommendation or that requirement. It'll be something required of their driveway permits.
okay.
Anything else from anyone?
Make a recommendation, we close the public
One
hearing.
second, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this time? I know no one else was sworn in, but anyone else wishing to speak? I'm not seeing anyone.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Hold on, one-
Well, you can still speak, it's just public hearing.
The, between, the fence between the school and the, was that part of that, was that a condition too? That y'all agreed to?
That was a discussion that was had at the council meeting, but of course, because this was denied, no condition was placed. But that was a discussion.
Okay. They seem for it, but I just want to, if we,
So, Mr. McIntyre, do you mind, or Mr. Morris? So I believe at the last meeting that you agreed to install a fence.
Clayton Homes is agreeable to the fence.
Okay.
Mayor, I second the motion to close the public hearing.
I don't think I ever officially got one, but go ahead.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing then.
Have a motion, and now a second by Councilman Scott, is that correct?
second.
All right, second by Councilman Stevens, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And then also to Councilman Scott, to your question earlier, if you'll look on page 8 of the minutes that's in your package, no one did speak in opposition of this. That is in the meetings, in the minutes. So just to answer that question as well. So, excuse me, on page 10, page 10, second paragraph, page 10. I asked if anyone else in attendance that wished to speak on this matter. There was no one in attendance that wished to speak on the matter. Therefore, no one did speak in opposition to that. All right, so now the public hearing is now closed. We do need to go through the findings of fact. Again, if you broke in the affirmative for all of them, we don't have to vote individually, but if not, we can entertain a motion to.
I have a question. So if we still find one of them inconsistent, can we still approve even though we find one of them inconsistent?
is it will change the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plans frequently change as growth occurs because, it's impossible to predict completely. But it is a general plan, so you basically, to approve this, need to approve the full findings of fact. And the findings of fact are just a guideline to give you the overall policies involved in approving the subdivision.
But Bob, isn't it correct, 4/5 of the council needs to approve all 4 findings to approve the subdivision?
Well, the council needs to approve all 4 findings, yes.
But by approving one, you're approving a change.
Yeah, that's not unusual, David. I mean, comprehensive, I'm not saying that you want to do it, I'm just saying it's not unusual to do it. Frequently, when you have rezonings, there's a conflict or a change in the plan because growth hasn't occurred just exactly like somebody thought it would 5 years ago when they did the plan. What the statute requires is that we update the plan every time you do a subdivision or a zoning. Okay? So if you were to deny this, you would be actually, it would change.
So let me ask the question again, because I lost it all in there. So my question was, so can we approve it with one of them not approved? That's my question. Have you got to approve all 4 to approve this?
You've got to approve them all.
Because my question is, I think even this young man here stated that that he did not deny that it was not consistent with our current adopted comprehensive plan. His statement was that should not be the only thing that we base it upon. It wasn't that the comprehensive plan was not it was not inconsistent from the comprehensive plan, but that should not be the only factor in making this determination. So we could approve it, but we cannot. I don't see how we can approve because it's inconsistent currently with our comprehensive plan. That's what we've said. I don't have a problem with approving the thing, but to say that that it's consistent would not be factually correct.
What it will do is we'll change the comprehensive plan, and that is a normal procedure and a normal effect of, usually this is a rezoning, but it's coming up in this context in the subdivision. So he's trying to grant the subdivision, no rezoning is involved, and but if you do the subdivision, it will be affirmation that we are changing the comprehensive plan.
And that could be part of the motion is that,
right.
That through this approval, we're amending the comprehensive plan. That takes care of it.
So you'll agree that these particular lots should be and are residential, presumably if the house is there for decades.
So that's a good point. So the statement underneath the plan is consistent with adopted plans and policies of the town. The statement under that is actually the town staff comments, right? The staff comments are not necessarily, we could ignore those completely, right? So the thing that we're approving, the statement of fact that we're looking at then is the plan is consistent with the adopted plans and policies of the town, not the inconsistent, not the adopted comprehensive plan. That we don't talk about that.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct. It's the finding of fact is the plat is consistent with the adopted plans and policies of the town, period.
Right.
That's the finding of fact.
This is
Can we say for the most part? Can we say for the most part?
This will change the comprehensive plan. I wouldn't worry about that, okay? But it will, because you will be basically putting in a decade's subdivision consistent with the existing zoning, and the plan said that the development would be differently. So you've got to have an updated plan. This will update the plan, and this particular few lots will be residential. And that shouldn't bother you unless you have a strong objection to this area being residential.
And again, like I said, I don't really have necessarily a problem with, I have a problem with saying something ain't true. That's,
Legislature's put a statute in that says, update your plan when you do this.
I understand. So therefore, we need to say something to make me feel better, to agree. That's what I'm saying.
That's right.
If you find a way to help me feel better, that's what I want to know, because then I can vote in favor.
You're basically
So
saying
can the
that you
first
think
finding of fact
that
be-
You're saying that you think this area should be residential when you vote for this, because it's, that will change the comprehensive plan, and that's fine, because that's what you think the area should be, okay? And that's all we need to do.
Yeah, I mean, the statement could say the plat is consistent with the adopted plans and policies of the town as the comprehensive plan is hereby amended.
There you go. There you go. That's what he was looking at. All right.
I
So there-
can agree with that then.
All right.
Mayor, before we carry forward, I just want to make sure that the clerk, for the record, that the applicant, the whole point in this is to make sure the community is developed properly. But I want to make sure the record reflects that the sidewalk was agreed upon on both sides, and the fencing that was addressed.
That will be a condition, or should be a condition of any motion to approve it.
Okay.
Right, we got to go through the findings of fact.
Okay.
Once you go through the findings of fact, and we agree on those, then there will need to be a motion to adopt the plan with two said conditions.
Right.
Those two conditions that we talked about, sidewalks and the fence, unless there's any others that you guys want to put on prior to this.
So read the first finding of fact.
All right, Stephen?
I would say the plat is consistent with the adopted plans and policies of the town as the comprehensive plan is hereby amended.
So do I have a motion on that one? I'm going to go through each one of them then, because we'll need to. Have a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the first finding of fact that the plat is consistent with the adopted plans and policies of the town. As amended.
As amended, with the comprehensive plan will be amended.
And-
Okay. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The next one, sir.
I'll read it. The plat complies with all applicable requirements of this ordinance.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, could we not just approve the other three? We've already approved them before. Can we not make a motion to approve the remaining? Bob's shaking his head yes.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we approve the other findings of facts as 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. I have a motion to approve findings of fact 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
I need a second.
Sorry.
Gentlemen. All right, a motion and a second.
Get us out of here.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, now, so we've gone through the finding the facts. Now, I will need a motion, if you so choose, for approval of this plat, S-24-01, with the two conditions. One being the sidewalks on both sides and the fence between the school.
And to clarify, we're talking about the fence along the common property line with the West Smithfield Elementary School.
Correct,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
To your standards. And to your standards as far as a fence, not just any fence, your standards.
A screening fence.
Okay. Make sure we know what kind of fence, their fence and your fence might be something different. So just want to make sure it's green.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat S-24-01 based on the findings of fact with the two stated conditions.
Okay. Have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary plat. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, work.
Swift Creek rezoning.
Okay, now. That's it? Do we need, do we?
You have another, this one, was a rezoning, you had a public hearing, you held the public hearing, and you tabled it because the went back and had the application signed, and I believe the people are here, they've been here for the last.
Okay, all right, okay, all right. Okay. All right.
That makes sense to me.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay, now we'll move on to our next one. It's RZ-24-01, Swift Creek property rezoning. Harrison Toulis and Aaron Grosclose are requesting the rezoning of two parcels located on the north side of Swift Creek Road near the entrance to the Johnston County Regional Airport from R20A to light industrial. The properties are further identified as Johnston County Tax ID numbers 15J08015B and 15J08014C. Stephen?
Yeah, just briefly, these are the two properties across from the Johnston County Regional Airport. These were previously part of a PUD plan put forth by Blue Line Aviation that was not developed, so the broker for the property is wanting to get a rezone to light industrial so we can market the property for sale. As you can see, sorry, just backing up, just to the south of that property is light industrial. So it's not an isolated industrial parcel. And it is annexed into the town of Smithfield, if you recall.
Part of it.
So the smaller property was a residential lot. The house went down sometime last year, and the larger parcel was vacant, and that was subject to the previous rezoning proposal. The whole area is guided for light industrial type uses. Survey of the property. Staff finds it consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with the Unified Development Code, and compatible with the surrounding land uses. This is my staff's recommendation and recommended motion.
Okay, any questions?
What,
Proceed.
with this being light industrial, that's a whole blanket of uses, wide open.
It's not like the B3. It's limited to manufacturing, office-type uses, and, warehousing, distribution. More than likely, it's going to develop very similar to what's to the south of it.
Right, but nothing's being light industrial. I mean, there's some heavier manufacturing businesses that could go in, and and we don't have any say if we approve this. That may not be consistent.
There's a distinction between the heavy and light industrial. If you recall, over at the industrial park, also by the airport, Citation Lane, we had to rezone a parcel to heavy industrial to allow the concrete plant. Because that was considered a heavy industrial use. So uses such as that require heavy industrial because of the dust, noise, and other particulars. A light industrial use usually doesn't have the nuisance factor. You might get a contractor's yard. I think we have an auto repair business in the light industry. I'm not sure if I don't think that's still allowed. But similar uses. It's a lot of like contractor yards with vans and that sort of thing.
I just have some concern with, across the road is, I mean, obviously airport and whatnot, but there are homes on that side of the road. And just doing a straight light industrial, to me, if I was a homeowner over there, I would be a little concerned that with no plan, when it opens it wide open to a light industry, that could cause some in my opinion, unwanted.
I just want to make reference, if it's okay, so the Airport Industrial Park is to the south. There are residential behind this lot to the west, and there is one residential property, home, a good distance to the north, as you can see on this plan.
So when we did the annexation, it was not rezoned, correct?
We rezoned it to a PUD.
PUD.
But it did not get built, so
Therefore,
until it's built, I mean, that PUD zoning still exists, but that plan has to be built, and it's not going to be built, so effectively, it's void.
Got you.
Mayor, I have a couple of questions. Mr. Winsman, thank you. Much to Mr. Stevens' concern, I remember when we heard that case for the rezoning, there was some presentation from the tenants of the houses from the rear. I guess you're calling that the south,
West.
perhaps, or it's actually west?
West.
So my question is the rear of that property developable? And if so, once the final plat becomes, if there does develop into something, that's at what time the buffers can be addressed? I know there are greater buffers for such as that type of, when you have residential meet, I guess you're calling it H2. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have type C and type D buffers for industrial against residential. And I believe it's a 20-foot buffer. I believe, that's just the top of my head. It's a 20-foot buffer with landscaping. Or they could do a type C, which is let me get this correct here. One is a berm with landscaping, one option, and the other requires landscaping and distance.
Okay, so, but that will come later per the standard that's already in place with the rezoning?
Right, that'll come, as the plan is developed, we'll do site plan review. It's an administrative review, and we will make sure all the proper buffers are in place. We can go a step further and encourage a developer to, change their plans around because of adjacent concerns, but they don't necessarily have to comply.
Okay.
I mean, it's well known in our staff where the issue lies on this property, but again, we have to follow the UDO, but we can try to persuade.
My just concern is that we do a blanket light industrial, and then we lose all say. I'd rather see somebody come in with a plan to do light industrial. That way, we have some say, but once we let it go light industrial, whatever falls under those uses is going there. It could be, good thing, it could be a bad thing. I don't know, so. Just concerned that, residential is one thing. We do need more industrial, so I don't want to sound like I'm against any industry out there. I think it's a great spot for it, but with no plan in place, I'm just slightly concerned that we're just leaving the door open for more legitimate complaints when they start building.
That is why conditional zoning developed.
Right. And I would like to see this conditionally rezoned light industrial, but here we are.
And Mayor, too, the rear of that property was, I believe that there's some very mature trees that you can see the buffer from residential, but on those two specific ones, that would be an issue. So that's why I would make sure it's important that we address that. Because those large trees do a very good job of, adding a natural buffer, but they're not present anymore, so. However.
Any other questions for staff?
I had a question. Someone brought it to my attention, so that's what I'm asking. The property owner, does the property owner have fees not paid to the town?
Staff had code enforcement staff had addressed the case out there. Our policy is once it gets to $1,000, we turn it over to the town attorney to prosecute. And beyond that, that's where we left it.
So I guess,
that's a Bob question then.
Well, the last that I have not searched the full record for the last 2 years on this particular property for this meeting, but it's my recollection that when this site went into compliance, that the fines were resolved. I think the site is basically in compliance now. There is some gravel on the dirt that we don't want, and it probably will disappear in the future developments.
And that is consistent with generally how we approach most code enforcement. We don't generally tend to be punitive if we get compliance, and we ultimately got compliance. So I think that is why Bob's saying the fees became not a concern at that point. That's typically how we handle the cases. We don't charge fees if we get compliance.
so the property is in compliance.
It's generally in compliance. There's still some gravel on the ground, but assuming it gets redeveloped, that'll be taken care
The
of.
ones where all the heavy fees were, fines were being
It's not
penalized
being
have been resolved.
Is it being used as a parking lot now?
It's not being used at all.
Oh, what would you, since you're planner, so I want to ask you the question. So what would you anticipate, obviously, I mean, I see the reason for the landowner wanting to redo it now, so he can, I mean, if I'm trying to buy one, if I want to buy a property's already been rezoned, it's a sure thing. If the property's not rezoned yet, now you're taking a risk, you know, you go through this whole ordeal and the town may say no. But if it's already been rezoned, it's obviously an easier sell if it's already been rezoned than if it's not been rezoned. I mean, I can fully understand, and I can appreciate that request. The question is then, what would you anticipate, what would you anticipate that property should be? Obviously, agriculture is not really something it should be because it's where it's at. I mean, we know the airport's growing, that whole area is growing out there, so it's not gonna be agriculture. And it's also, we know it's not gonna be residential, because do you really want your house next to the airport? I mean, I'm saying, I don't anticipate that being what it is. So the only thing you got left would be either light industrial or heavy industrial. And I don't think you want heavy industrial on that small road across there unless the county wants to, or DOT wants to widen it. I don't think that's gonna happen. So really, you're only left with the light industrial. That's really what you got left.
Yeah, and that's
So I mean,
what's-
I don't see as anything else can go into that area but light industrial. You know, if it's not gonna be, if they're not building a school. I mean, that would be an exception. But since that's not gonna happen, I don't see you have any really other choices here. So I perfectly understand the request. And, you know, I also understand the reasonableness for the request so that they can sell the property. I mean, I guess so the question is to help Councilman Stevens, the question is once the land has been rezoned to light industrial, there still has to be stuff brought before somebody, either the planning board or the council. We won't rezone anything because the zoning's already done, yeah.
The only thing left to do will be site plan review, and that goes to staff,
Right. That's right.
not the planning board or the council.
But in the site planning, when you're doing site planning though, what would you do that would be, to his concern, that would protect, are you guys looking to ensure that there is protection for those people living in that community? Because that's really your major concern. And if you can say that we already have in place safeguards that doesn't have to go to council, we're not Big Brother having to watch over you, that the department has the way to protect those people, then I think that's really what your concern is, isn't it? I mean, I'm not trying to speak for you, but.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is we're changing something to light industrial that, I mean, just for marketing purposes, but not without an actual plan. So I feel like there needs to be a plan, and then to be light industrial. And here it's just,
It's also hard for them to sell the land if it's, to got a promise of rezoning versus a rezoning.
Right, but an applicant who, I mean,
So a couple of things. Land can be purchased on contingencies.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily all that. But in particular with industrial, as I've learned over time, industrial users are looking for land and they want to build right away. So I think that is part of it with the type of land it is, being industrial, and the type of industrial users, what they're looking for sites ready to go. So I think that is part of the concern by the broker. And in terms of the standards, I mean, we do have buffers in our code for industrial against residential. Are they sufficient? That's up to the council and the planning board to decide. As a planner, just as for an example, the College Plaza commercial development by the college. As staff, I made sure that there was more of a solid green wall on that back side of what's the name of that road? Just escaping me. But on the back side of that development against the residential, so I had them put in a solid row of conifers as opposed to any other choices they could have had in the UDO to try to bolster a strong screen. That's the influence I can have. It doesn't mean they have to follow my plan. If it meets UDO, I have to stamp it approved. But there are things we can do to try to encourage good development, good decisions, but I can't guarantee it.
So over the, this is a traditional zoning. So in a traditional zoning, you zone into districts, and you give freedom to the landowner to develop within a range, and the government can't really say much about it because he's got within that range. Now, he's got to stay within that range, but he's free in that range to develop. Now, in the last 10 years, certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, there's developed statewide more of a tendency towards conditional zoning, which is a bargaining across the table. Right. It's got good points and bad points, depends on how much you want government in your property, okay? But the government can bargain with it. Everybody wants government until it's their property, then they don't want any government. So the traditional means, this is a traditional rezoning in the light industrial, and they will have discretion within the rules of that particular classification what to do, and Steve will have limited influence on it, except.
Right, so once it, yeah.
And sometimes they could have chose conditional zoning, but didn't know what they were going to do.
Right.
So I think it's a realtor's decision, probably. They could market it better if they said, you can do this just like the guys next door. And if you've been down that industrial, at Airport Drive, as I'm sure Travis has many times, it is very light industrial.
Right.
And they're all serving the airport out there.
Once we approve this,
You can't get
Well, it's not everything, it's within the realm of light industrial, and if we get burned on it, we need to go back and look at our categories of light industrial. But it provides owner freedom in that area.
yeah, I mean, owner definitely has rights, but I'm just
It's right.
trying to be devil's advocate here that just blanket approving just because with no plan.
Your concern is reasonable.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what ended up in conditional zoning, but traditionally, we have allowed this discretion, and it's important too, because, we may decide later that the buffers should be a little different in light industrial. I have no idea what they are.
Yeah, I've got the exact buffer requirements. Type B buffer is 20 feet with trees and shrubs. They could do a type C, which is the same requirement of planting with a fence, but then getting rid of the 20 feet so it can be more condensed. Or they could do a berm, but there's no dimensional requirements, but berms typically eat up more space. So berm with landscaping. So those are really the options that the code allows the applicant.
And apart from that, those buffers, the big protection here to the west of this property for the residential subdivision is there's no access. So, it's like any development out there is going to be the back up to them. There's not going to be any access into that subdivision with those homes. And all they're going to do is see the back. It's like looking at the back of Carroll Farms.
This one.
So can I ask a question? So I know what we can do to approve it. My question is, under what grounds can we deny it?
That's a rezoning. You can deny a rezoning for any reason.
Any reason, I'll just say I don't like it.
Say, come back to condition.
Okay, and you can say, okay. All right, I understand what you're saying. But I do understand, I understand why they want to do it. I think, my personal opinion, I think it's a reasonable request so they can market their property. I also understand the concerns that we lose control. But the planning department does have places in part, and if our UDO is not sufficient to protect us from those things, then we are the ones responsible for fixing the UDO. So if the UDO is bad, it's our fault. Not your fault, it's our fault. And we need to fix it. But if their UDO is like it's supposed to be, we've gone through that UDO pretty exhaustively, several times in my terms. So, I mean, I think we felt pretty comfortable that our UDO is pretty good to protect us from what we need to do. And that's the purpose for that, so we don't have to have these meetings. And the builders don't have to have those meetings. Isn't that the purpose for it? If not, we don't need a UDO. We just do conditional zoning with no UDOs ever. I mean, am I right? I mean, that's what my understanding is. So the purpose for traditional zoning, we use the UDO that we've already spent the time and effort to make sure we have those plans in place and then have the people. We used to do this all the time before we ever had conditional zoning.
Correct.
So that's my thoughts. Huh?
I was asking, do I have a motion then?
I make a motion, we approve the request.
I have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning request. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. No. Oh, no, what you got now?
So, who seconded the motion? You seconded it? Okay. All right, so what do we have?
3-3.
I think. 3-3.
So Andy's got to do it.
All right, so I will vote in the affirmative of the rezoning. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Who's clapping?
There's been too many of these recently, guys.
Oh, there's a lot lately.
I know. I'm gonna have to change my status.
But I understand the concern.
To a voting member.
If it don't work, we fix it again.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, gentlemen. Good conversation. All right, so we do need to go into a closed session. I know we have an item on here for budget discussions. I don't think probably will not get to the budget discussions. We will go through council members' comments, your report, and then go to closed session. That's what I'm saying with you. All right, so any comments from the council at this time? We'll go to council members' comments.
Mayor, I have a few very brief comments, and it's in highlight to our town staff, specifically regards to our electrical department. You know, a lot of the things that we're seeing is reactive response to bad things, but more recently, I know they're doing some surveys in the area and upgrading some equipment, and I just want to tell them thank you. They had to do some specific upgrades in our north side of town, and they even went as far as notifying the residents of exactly what time their power was going to be cut off, and they had it back on before they said it was going to be back on. I just want to tell them thank you. It's very efficient in what they're doing, and some of the upgrades that they made was to address some environmental issues, potentially, but not really a problem. But I'm just very thankful for our electrical program and the utility service that we offer. And I just wanted to make sure and state that for the record. And the last comment I have is I personally would like to thank Mr. Terry West, who's not here tonight. I see that he's retiring. Is some notes in our, but he's provided some very dedicated service to the town through many different leaderships, and he's quite commendable in the honor that he carries, and I wish him the very, very best. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank the DSTC for the Ham and Yam Festival this past weekend. I don't see anybody here, but I assume most of y'all were in attendance. It was probably one of the largest attended in years. lots of food, lots of vendors. I was there most of the day, and it seemed like an overall great time, and look forward to them building upon the success of this year. And also tomorrow at South Smithfield Elementary is their Walk to School Day. I encourage any of the town staff, anybody to attend, or any citizens. They're meeting at 8 o'clock at Civitan Field and then walking to school to encourage exercise and health within our young kids, and look forward to being out there myself. So if anybody else like to come on.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I got a few, if you don't mind. First of all, I'd just like to give condolences to one of our citizens who frequented this meeting over the years, Mr. Alan Eason of the Pine Acres community. He passed away Sunday, actually on his 80th birthday, so definitely like to give condolences to his family. And all what he meant for Smithfield. He was also part of the Men's Progressive Club. He worked down at Frank Lee's. He was just, a big part of the community of Smithfield, and so just definitely condolences. Back on March 28th at 702 Blunt Street, there was a sewage spill, and I talked to this resident yesterday because she wasn't able to make the last meeting. Of course, she wasn't able to make it out tonight. But there was a sewage spill right there at her house, and over 13,000 gallons of sewage spilled in her residence. And talking to one of our employees that day when I went over there, some of this was negligence on our own town staff, and they overlooked something. I talked to the guy, his name is Pat, and he explained about 2 or 3 times. I'm not an engineer, I don't really know all what happened, but it was a mistake on our behalf. And, she's having, experiencing a whole lot of smells, especially every time it rained. And, you can imagine all the rain that we got on Sunday, even though, we've been getting some rain, so I just, wish somebody would have, did some due diligence, especially if it was on us, to at least check on this residence. 13,000 gallons of sewage, spilling right there in her yard, and all the lye and stuff they put down. And, I just wish somebody would do some due diligence and keep a check on what happened at her house. Definitely want to thank the fire chief, Chief Daughtry, Sunday night, who was out, and all this rain that we got the other night, riding up and down the streets, taking pictures, and definitely like to thank him and his staff, and also the police and everybody else, because I think it's time for us, this is almost a call for action, because it was flooded everywhere Sunday night, and, we need to do something. And this was just a quick rain. Just imagine if it would have been a hurricane or, rain, 2 or 3 hours, or, 2 or 3 days of this rain. And I just feel, we got to do something. We keep talking, part of the talks has been in our budget. Definitely down on East and West Street. It was flooded. Up here by First Missionary Baptist Church, 4th and Caswell, it was flooded. It was flooded here. So I just think, we need to do something besides, keep talking about it. Lastly, I'll say, during our budget session, one of the things that we talked about was kind of a safety plan right here in this building. The other day I was here to pay my utility bill, and of course I looked to the right, and we have one of the most vulnerable employees that work in here, who's our customer service rep. And when people come talk to her, they not really bringing her flowers. They not really saying nice things, because, she's having to tell them possibly that, their utility is going to be cut off. They owe this, they owe that. But then if you go in there, it's pretty much her, sitting down in a few seats. But if you look at the other places, they have the glass, everything Going in the other part, you have a locked door. And I really think, you know, that employee needs some safety, because it's not always pleasant when our residents go in there and speak to her. So I just hope, you know, we can look at her and just find a way, and just for a little protection or whatever. That's all I have for tonight.
Anyone else?
I got a couple items too. So y'all know we had Skills USA a couple weeks ago, and Chief Daltrey was the chairperson for it this year. Outstanding group of people. Everything went great. I thought, I'm confident that this state employee don't have to follow him around because he's got it, okay? He did an outstanding job, 137 contestants. It went through smoothly, had no trouble whatsoever. Matter of fact, we finished the first night faster than we've ever done before, very smooth. Next day, we finished up a reasonable amount of time. We did turn the scores in at 5 o'clock when they were closing the door, but it got done, and I appreciate all the work that he did. Second thing is, another thing on the fire department, I had a situation, my next door neighbor had a situation that somehow or another the wind blew and knocked down one of her limbs off of her Bradford pear tree. And Mike Scott went over there the day after me and him looked at it, and the tree was rotten actually in the middle, and that's why it fell over. So it didn't take a big wind, but it fell into the power lines and actually pulled that metal thing that the power's on, whatever it's called, and it actually damaged her roof. That's how strong it was on the line, and we sent the fire people over. They were over there to make sure because it was smoking. And the the Progress Energy guy comes, just snips the little wires off the limb, so it falls in the driveway and leaves. So this is a single mother that now can't get her car out of the driveway, and they leave her. So I called Jeremy and the guys went over there and they moved the trees out of the driveway for her. So she was very, very appreciative because she could get in and out of her car driveway. So, that's the things that people in our town do. They go above and beyond. Did they have to do that? No, they didn't have to, but it was the right thing to do. And we appreciate all those guys doing it, and appreciate Jeremy Daltrey and his crew. And if you get a chance to see any of our fire people, any of our town people, but our firefighters, our law enforcement people, remember to tell them you appreciate them and the efforts they make, because they're doing things, they're taking risks in their lives that we don't have to take. So, but I appreciate them much, and thank you for what they do.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. I just want to echo Councilman Stevens' comments about Ham and Yam. I thought the event this year was fantastic. The weather held out for the most part, but very well attended, lots of vendors. I've heard a lot of positives about the event, and I think it was great. There was a lot of, I spoke to a lot of people who were from out of county that came to visit. Several from out of state who were there visiting. So it was a great event, great way to showcase our town, and Councilman Stevens, you can make a good ham biscuit, sir. I say thank you. I know you had to be tired. You're probably dreaming about ham biscuits. But I thought it was outstanding. And to the town staff, downtown development, and all the businesses who chipped in to make it happen. The police department, fire, the public works department were out there removing trash cans, bringing in trash cans. Electrical department were dealing with issues that we had because we had so many vendors, right? So that was a kind of a good thing to have, but also just know that the team's already working on taking suggestions for next year to make improvements to it. So it's a great job there. So, Mr. Manager, that's all I have. I'll turn it over to you, sir, for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don't have a lot this evening, just a couple reminders. We have a ribbon cutting at pickleball courts on May 18th at 8:45 in the morning. We also have a ribbon cutting at the Jackie Ray Bryant Walking Trail on May 23rd at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Please plan to attend our next concert at the amphitheater, Journey Tribute Band Trial by Fire on May 17th. On June 1st, the fire department's going to go around for Smoke Alarm Saturday, installing and reviewing fire safety for homeowners. We have the Shriners Parade scheduled right here on Market Street on May 18th at 11:30. It's a Saturday. And earlier in the meeting, we talked a little bit about striping. A gentleman who was here. The Outlet Center Drive has been striped, restriped, so it is not a safety concern any longer. We also talked about the striping on Highway 301 at previous meetings. I have had some conversations in more detail about that. They are in the process of creating a schedule for us to restripe 301 from Selma to Market Street. That's going to be done at night to try to deal with the traffic issues. The police department will have to help out a little bit with that, probably make sure it's safe, but that is getting on the books. That's all I have.
Manager, does that address those intersections too that we discussed?
Address Market Street intersection, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. All right, at this time, we do need to go into closed session. So do I have a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, Section A5?
I make a motion, we go into closed session based upon those requirements.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll go into closed session at this time. Thank you.